Everyone, welcome to the BBQ Brews Show. We're live here back at Mount Pleasant Road Brewery's tap room.
How good is it?
Coming to you live. My name's Ryan, and this is
Mark. How you going, guys?
good. And mate, how you been?
Really good. So it's been a bit, warm here, but a bit hectic as well. But at the same time, got a few little cooks in on the weekend. It's kind of good.
Yeah.
Stuff. I've seen some fancy stuff happening your way.
And Mark cooks steak. He cooks a lot of steak.
So it's only bought 3.5 kilos. It was fine. It barely fit in the Traeger. So like, I think I tried to wipe. I think I need a new one, slightly bigger.
No, I think you do. I think there's always room for another.
There always is. Yes.
No, that's it, mate. Look, before we kick off, we better crack open these breakfast beers. What are you having today?
I've got the dark side of Highs. So a nice little breakfast beer.
Yeah.
How's your breakfast beer?
I've got something fruity.
Oh, that's what it's
the
nice.
raspberry wheat beer. Which
That feels like that's healthier.
it is.
Good breakfast. Yeah.
It is. Crack her open.
Ooh. Don't wear it.
All over the technology.
Cheers.
Fantastic.
So who have we got on today?
I don't know. You may have heard of him, mate. He's kind of just coming. He's an up and comer.
He's behind the scenes sort of guy. Yeah.
But yeah, we got Jay Beaumont on the
Jay
show.
Beaumont. Oh, there you go.
So super excited. Co-founder of the Australasian Barbecue Alliance,
Yep.
co-founder of Meatstock Australia, which obviously is just amazing, kicking off right now. And he happened to be in Hamilton at the moment. So this is technically one of our first international guests for a while.
I would say it is, isn't it?
Just by default. Book publisher, and yeah, his input and he's pushing the barbecue community has just changed so many very different directions, which has been really, really good.
Just opening up so many doors to everybody and really making it a big, really Australian industry and growing it for them.
Absolutely. And you know what's really, really cool as well? It's almost to the date, 2 years since we last spoke to him.
Oh, really?
Almost to the date. So this is really exciting. So without further ado, let's get Jay live from Hamilton. Jay, welcome to the show, mate. How you doing?
Hey, how are we? And I have to apologise up front because I don't have a beer. There's a bit of a long story to it, but Better Beer are our sponsor for Meatstock for 2024, and they have air freighted their beer from Australia over to New Zealand, and it hasn't arrived yet. So I have no beer.
You got a few days left. Hopefully, it turns up.
No. It's just cleared customs. It's on a truck and it's on its way.
Fantastic, Jay, mate. How's NZ looking? I've been seeing the bump in videos you've been posting. Looks epic. The area there, showgrounds look crazy.
Yeah, the venue's called Mystery Creek. It's about an hour and a half out of Auckland from the airport, and it is truly a special place. It's in terms of scale, it's probably one of the biggest events that we do. It's a huge, beautiful, green, there's roads, infrastructure, big buildings. It's a beautiful event, and will probably be one of the biggest meat stocks in terms of scale that we do or have ever done. So we're really excited to be here. It's a beautiful venue, and we can't wait to sort of welcome everyone inside. And Saturday's sold out, so it's a full house.
That's unreal. Now, like I mentioned before, almost 2 years since we last spoke to the date, and that was back when we were on Instagram doing live. So it's a bit of a change up in stuff. But I guess how's the last couple of years been, mate? We came back. Was the first Meatstock back when we last spoke. Last year was amazing. We had so much happening with Toowoomba coming in, and then this year we've got some changes. A lot of things happened in the last couple of years. But what have been your highlights?
Coming back from COVID was just a little bit of cross our fingers and hope it all sort of worked out type scenario, and thankfully it did. We got back into Meatstock just as restrictions were kind of coming off from COVID. So that was a good thing. And then the next year we had a bit more confidence. We ramped things up. We put in bigger bands, and we had and it was a good year. We had record crowds. People came out to support us, and we had a really good year. But this year we're doubling up again. We're moving back to New Zealand, to Hamilton, and we're moving out of Melbourne to Bendigo and having camping at Bendigo for the first time in Victoria. So if you've ever been to Toowoomba, it's a really cool vibe. There's people camping on site. It's a really good vibe. I feel like in the inner cities, it's kind of like everyone's so anxious to get in and get things done and eat and do everything else. But in the venues where there's camping, it's just a little bit more relaxed. It's a cooler vibe. So moving to Bendigo, moving back to New Zealand. So 4 events. 3 of them are happening within about 3 weeks of each other. So for our team, the people that come along, it's full on. And we just didn't have a choice. Like, I don't want to do back-to-back events, and I don't want to do events close to each other. I'd rather space them out, but we just had no choice. That's the availability that the venues have, and that's what we've kind of got to live with. So it's going to be pretty hectic on our team, and yeah, it's pretty full on. So it is what it is.
I don't, like obviously I've got I also was a Sam Ellis and Paulie was, and everyone was flying in, and I'm like, oh, these guys are going to have a pretty hectic few weeks coming up because they're just it's just so much. But it's so cool to see the crowd, the crew get back together as well. I mean, that's something I personally like. I really love about Meatstock. It's just some of these people you keep in touch with on the social media, and that's about it. And then you get to the festival, and you're like, oh, mate, it's so good to see you. And we just have this amazing community.
It's a little family, right? Yeah. Everyone sort of gets together to go, you know what? Our goal is to make this the best event everyone who attends. Everyone sort of pitches in. It doesn't matter what the task or role is. Everyone just rolls their sleeves up and gets it done. So that everyone has a great time. And it just makes the whole atmosphere amazing for everybody. They're not just, the guests, but ourselves as well. We have a great time.
Oh, so good. But how important is that community? I think we spoke briefly on that in the past, but how important is that community I feel like Meatstock family, which just seems to be growing so well. How important is that to you and the festival?
I wouldn't bother doing Meatstock otherwise, right? I've got other businesses, and running a festival is a tough way to make money and an easy way to lose money. And the only thing that really keeps me motivated and going is the fact that I get to catch up with people that I really do call close friends. They put on a safety vest, they get out there, they help us, they offer support. And when we all catch up, it's a family, and it's just a bloody good excuse to hang out, to be honest, right? And with people that are like-minded as well, right? People that are into barbecue, they're into doing stuff like this. People that get a kick out of watching other people get into it, or so the core crew, and you guys are part of that core crew. The core crew is something that makes being part of Meatstock special. And without that core crew, if people were just, how could I put it, employees, so to say, I wouldn't do it.
Yeah, and you wouldn't get the same passion, you just don't get the same sort of passion. But I mean, I still remember every Meatstock so far, the last day. I think last day has always been in Sydney. And that last day, especially the last half day, you just sort of walk around like, oh man, like this is, I'm not going to see you guys for so long. It's so sad, but like at the same time, it's just always like you're pumped that you've had like such a great few weekends together as well, which, without Meatstock, you wouldn't have that either. So yeah, it's so good.
Yeah, we do. I do walk away from Meatstocks proud of what we've done and what we've achieved, and we get thrown curveballs and try and sort them. And but yeah, I walk away from there. I can't wait for the next one. I'm like, this is great. But I think keeping them apart and having a gap between the season is what convinces us to bloody do it again next year.
Well, absolutely. I think as soon as it's like Christmas, right? So Sydney ends, and then it's like, how many days till the next Meatstock? And the dates get released, and you're like, all right, now we know exactly how many days there is. And then it's just a countdown towards it. So it's really cool, man. We love being part of it, and it's so good. And I suppose a couple of things I really want to talk to you about is, we sort of the competition barbecue side of things you bring in to Meatstock. The Meatstock comp seems to bring in a lot of people. But what's this year looking like, especially with that back-to-back weekends? Because that seems to be a difficult one to try and get teams. So we've got a lot of teams in Toowoomba as well as in Bendigo.
So in New Zealand, it's a full house, 53 teams.
Yeah.
We could have got a lot more. It's pretty quiet in Australia, I've got to say. We've picked the same weekend as the SCA World Championships, and we just have no choice. So unfortunately, we've lost about 10 or 15 teams to SCA World Championships.
Yeah.
But there's about 30 odd teams for Bendigo, 30 plus odd teams for Toowoomba, which is down a little bit. And I think that's a reflection of the cost of living. It's not cheap to compete in barbecue competitions. It's very expensive. And I would say too that there's a lot of teams that have kind of like not given up on competition, but they've just sort of taken a break. And I've seen it happen over and over and over again. But I've it's challenging when you go to a competition, you spend huge amounts of money, you buy a lot of meat, you cook your heart out, you put everything you've got into it, and then you wait at the end for someone to hopefully call your name at the very least and or give you a trophy. And if you don't get it, it's a shitty weekend. It turns a fun weekend into something that's shitty. And the sad part about competition barbecue is more people leave unhappy than happy. And and on top of that, there are some teams that just can't lose right now. They are in Australia, especially. And look, it's the same in competitive eating. They've got those competitions as well. There are some competitors that basically, if they're entered, you start to think, well, should I go? Because I don't have a chance of winning, right? And there are 3 teams in Australia that are just they can't seem to lose. Everything they turn up, every comp they go to, they're grand or reserve. So it has taken a little bit of the, I would say the anticipation of I'm in with a chance out of it. But things go in cycles, and I've been around barbecue for long enough to see really dominant teams that have just wiped the floor for the year, and then 2 years later they're struggling to hit the top 10. And things go in cycles, and people find new and better ways of doing things. But right now we have some very dominant teams, and also I think it's pretty hard to justify to your wife, hey, I'm going to go to Toowoomba, I'm going to spend our hard-earned money and compete in a barbecue competition and put very expensive meat in little boxes, and hopefully I win a little trophy when you've got the mortgage to pay,
No, absolutely, man, absolutely. And it's and that's just, and I reckon that plays a huge part because it's so expensive. But quite funny you're saying that obviously the SCA was it J-Mac who's like, J-Max, he's like, oh mate, Dan Barrett's out, I'm coming in. This is my chance. So he's completely pumped for he's pumped for Bendigo purely because Dan Barrett's obviously. So I think it's going to be really cool to see what Bendigo brings with that shift in teams.
Yeah, 100%. Yep.
That's it. Now, is it Toowoomba that's got is it a quad header or a 4? Is it four stakes or 3 stakes it's doing in Toowoomba?
Toowoomba is very unique. It's actually got 4 stakes, so it's pretty full on for teams. They start on Friday, they finish on Saturday. They cook 2 steaks a day. But there's 4 back-to-back SCA entries. So if you're big into SCA and you really want to get your points up, or you want to get a golden ticket, there's no better event than Toowoomba with 4 back-to-back SCA events.
And it's funny, like you say, oh, they got to cook 2 steaks in 2 days. 2 steaks each day for 2 days. It's funny because like it doesn't sound like much, right? Like you're like, oh, it's 2 steaks, but the amount of effort that goes into those steaks is just amazing. From them picking it out of the bunch, like, okay, I want that steak. The amount of work that goes into that steak is crazy, isn't it? Like I couldn't comprehend how much time is spent on this meat.
We've been very lucky enough to actually sit there and watch a few of them actually preparing, getting ready, and seeing the competition winners. Cook their steaks and try and steal some tips to take home, but you can't replicate it, sadly. But it's amazing just watching these guys. It's art, really, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, unbelievable.
I will say this, right? I've been around SCA since the very beginning, and as you guys might know, I take a lot of photos and video, and I was going through some old footage a week ago, and of people cooking steaks at SCA competitions, and good people too. And while I was looking at the videos, I'm like, oh dear, we've come such a long way in SCA. Like the way that people prepare a steak, how it looks, grill marks, shape. People have got little scissors out and tweezers, and they're shaping everything, and the way they select the steaks. It's turned into like a real delicate art form. You're not just cooking a steak; you're making a presentation. So things have dramatically improved, and if you want to do well in SCA, then you need to figure out how to make your steak look better than good. Some of these steaks come out looking phenomenal,
and it's I find it like I hate anything fine motor skill stuff. It's not for me. So I see them like putting pins in and strings around, and I'm like, I am never going to do that because I just don't have the patience to do that.
There's a good reason. There's a good reason why I'm a promoter of events and not a competitor of events, because I would completely
I'd
balls that up.
rather do this.
The other good thing is you walk around the pits, the guys are happy to sort of give you tips and advice. So you can actually talk to them. Even though it's a competition, they all sort of work together and help each other out, which is a weird sort of thing for a competition, but everyone's just so friendly and supportive.
Nice.
Yeah.
Now,
the SCA format's really good. It's just, I don't know what it is about it, but it's a little bit looser. It's a little bit freer. People aren't as, I wouldn't say not as serious about it, because that's not the right word, but they don't, in ABA, KCBS, that sort of format, people are very rigid and structured about not sharing and making sure other people don't see what they're doing and hiding their boxes and not showing photos. Whereas SCA seems to be a little bit more fun. It's back to the basics of, I'm here for a good time, and while I'm here, I'm also going to do a steak, as opposed to, I'm here laser visioned, I want to win, and I don't give a shit what happens around me, and I don't really want to talk to anybody. So I think there's just a different vibe around SCA and, KCBS, ABA sort of system. But, you can do both. You can do one, you can do the other. It's up to you. It's whatever you like. But it's also cheap. It's a lot cheaper than, you're not out there buying $400 briskets, right? The steak's given to you. You pay your entry fee. So it's a lot more affordable. So, I mean, you've only got to see the growth of SCA around the world and to see how popular that thing's become in 5 years, 6 years, to know that, it has its place, and that World Championships has become a big deal for people.
Absolutely, mate. Have you seen the comp team setups in Australia evolve? Because obviously that's one of the awards of the ABA for like the competition team setups, but it seems like that we've got some really big comp setups now, almost American-esque in the way we do it. Have you seen that evolve over the years in Australia? Because it seems like we're sort of at a good place where they come up, they set up, they've got TVs up, some have like trailers, some have massive four-wheel drives, they're painted up, and it looks so cool now. It kind of brings the vibe straight in without even starting.
I'm probably going to shock you with this answer, but the answer is no.
Oh, well,
I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why. Let me tell you why, right?
Go.
Okay, we've got 50 teams that rock up, right? And they bring a combination of marquees, some caravans, and a few trailers, right? And the odd person, Butcher's Axe, for example, right? Rocking with a brand new Dodge Ram, beautiful van, right? And Daniel Barrett's got a nice van, and you're starting to see teams pop up with some serious rigs, right? But relative to going to the Jack or Memphis in May or the Royal, right? We're not even on the same league. These guys are rolling in Ford F-350s with dual axles on the back, towing a caravan bigger than my bloody house. And there is 200 of these things in a row, right? I hang around with Tuffy Stone a lot, and he rolls around in probably what would be Australia's best van, and he's little. He's got a little baby one. He rocks up with like this little baby van, right? And that would be considered bigger in Australia. So there are levels to it. And don't get me wrong, we do just fine. But when it comes to big trucks and big trailers, we're still running around. We're still running around in Ford Rangers, and they're running around in Ford F-350s. It's a different scale.
No, that's cool. Now, look, I've got two things I want to ask you. But firstly, just on the comp scene in Australia, what do you see as, what's going to get us to potentially, maybe not the big trucks, but that popularity and that almost professional career change that happens in the when it comes to competition barbecue? Where's Australia? What do we have to do to try and get to there? Like, could you see us getting there in the next 5 to 10 years, you reckon?
Look, I don't know. Like, I feel like the ABA has done a really good job of making barbecue professional in Australia and providing a structure and at least providing the confidence to teams that we can train judges, we can run a scoring system, and we can produce results and do a really good job. It's set the tone in terms of expectations with a code of conduct about how they would like teams to act and how they would like teams to portray in the public. But sometimes barbecue community can be its own worst enemy, and some things that happen or comments online or the volatility of social media. As a sponsor, you look at some of that volatility and you look at some of the teams that maybe don't get along or aren't happy or constantly complaining. And we do create an air of unprofessionalism about us. And that would stop bigger brands that want to be associated with barbecue, but not necessarily comp barbecue. And I think that we've probably done ourselves a little bit of an injustice like that. Like over in New Zealand, it's very positive over here. In Australia, there's a lot of negativity. But there is negativity in all barbecue competitions. Go spend some time on KCBS's forums online. Like everyone, they've been around for 20 years and people still whinge about the process. So I think it's something that teams just have to accept, that they haven't done well, or they didn't do well, and maybe it's not the fault of the promoter or the sanctioning body, and it's a reflection of what they put in the box. So I also think that there are some teams doing this really well, where they brand themselves, they market themselves, they've got like a little pitch deck, they go to sponsors, they get some money given to them, it helps pay for their entry fees and travel and things like that. And there are some teams that are doing that really, really well. But I think if we want to take this to the next level, a lot of the teams could perhaps do with, marketing themselves a little bit better to attract brands to help sponsor this passion of ours. But we do have to remember, we're only a country of, Australia is anyway a country of 20 plus million people. We've got 1/15 of the population of America. So it's not like we don't punch above our weight. It's not like our teams aren't world class. I think we do well, but just setting the expectations right. We're just never going to have 200 or 300 team comps, because it's just not possible. So, and to put it in perspective, right? Port Macquarie, which historically was the biggest event in Australia, had 100 teams. If we were in America and we compared that per population, Australia would have had a 1,500 team event if we had the sort of population that America had, right? It would have been 3 times bigger than the Royal. So we punch just fine. I think sometimes we set the bar so high that people sometimes think, that, they should be like a super important NASCAR driver or something like that. But we have to set the reality is that there's not a lot of people making a living out of barbecue, even in America. So, and the people at the top of their game, are making a living. But at the end of the day, it's a cool hobby. It's a fun hobby. It's something that if you don't take too seriously, you can really, really enjoy. It's something that if you do take it really seriously, you can still really, really enjoy. But I think a lot of it's just, I think I said it before and I'll say it again. If you walk away and you don't hear your name called, man, you can see the life being sucked out of people. They've put in 5 days of prep, buying meat, travel, money, effort. It's raining, it's hot, it's, I can't find my stuff. There's all this frustration around competition. And if you don't hear your name called, man, it's a brutal mistress. Like it's like, I can see it. I sit there every event and watch people, the look on people's faces when they don't win, or the look on people's faces when someone else takes it up, takes the prize. And it's a tough thing. So look, where the future is of Australian barbecue, I'm not sure. It'll always be around. There'll always be cool events. As part of the ABA, I'm committed, along with the rest of the board, of having as many events in Australia as we possibly can, and quality events with good promoters that have insurance and pay out their fees and run a quality event. And there has never been a time in competitive barbecue, as there is right now in Australia, where you have more opportunities to compete than the choice is yours. Whether you want to go to a Meatstock or whether you want to go to an event anywhere else, you look at the calendar, there's 24 events to pick from or something like that. So, it's up to you. It's up to you as a team about where you go, where you travel to, and what you do. But I can say that the between promoters and the ABA, the platter of events that are in front of you is really, I think, quite remarkable. And it's up to you whether you want to compete in those events or not.
Yeah, that's cool. And I'm seeing so many more events coming this year as well. So I love that insight, Jay. I reckon, it's something I always want to do is at least do 1 or 2 comps just to get the feelings. Not necessarily my own team.
Box.
Just just pick the parsley. But yeah, it's good to have that opportunity, and amazing insight. I appreciate that. The other question I have, and this is going back to what you said before as well. You mentioned Tuffy Stone and obviously being in the US, but you spent some time with him filming a whole bunch of content, some amazing video. I just had to ask, like, what was that like? What was that experience like? Because it felt like you went to some amazing places with him, and just, I guess, how much do you learn from just like being in his presence?
I brought Tuffy out to Meatstock really early on in Meatstock, brought him out a couple of times. Nicest guy you'll ever meet, humble, knowledgeable, great guy. I have nothing but time for him. And then we brought Mo out a few times, and I met up with him again at Churrascada in Brazil, and Tuffy was out there as a special guest. And he just started chatting and said, hey, I need some help with some video content. Would you be available? And he's the sort of guy that you just don't say no to. So I said yes, and I went with him to the Jack and recorded that experience, and that video did really well. I went with him to Memphis in May, recorded that experience. That was a cool video. That went really well. We went to Brazil together. He was a special guest of some events, and so we went over there, and that was a experience that I wanted him to come and see, because Brazil is such a special place. We've got trips planned to go to Sweden. We did Meatopia in London, which we recorded and shot a heap of video there. We went to Smoke and Fire Festival in the UK. So we've done a few trips together. He's such a knowledgeable, down to earth, guy, who's got a resume like no other. And so I'm obviously busy doing a lot of projects, but as much help as I can give him, I will. And yeah, we've had a bit of fun creating some cool content together and traveling the world and experiencing what's outside of what we know about barbecue. And that was a cool experience, right? And doing road trips or staying in hotels or whatever it was, I live for this stuff. I live for travel. I live to, I'll drive a shitty shitbox car every day of the week if I can get another trip to go somewhere.
I remember you saying that. And it resonated with me so much, because then I see you're in India, you're in parts of Asia, like you, and I love that your I guess your mantra is, I want to travel, I want to see and experience, and I'm happy to give away, like, driving a fancy car or whatever for it. So it's so cool to see. Yeah, well, I don't know. Everyone has different philosophies about what they want out of life, right? And I'm kind of like the sort of guy that I don't know how long I'm going to be here for, so I don't want to wait till I'm 70 to go travel, because I might not be bloody here at 70. And I'm also the sort of guy. Other people are, and that's cool, but I'm not into caravanning. I don't have a jet ski. I don't have I don't have a boat, right? I just don't do that sort of stuff. But every bit of sort of resource I have, it just gets me on an aeroplane and go somewhere, And the India trip that I just come back from cost $1,500 with Intrepid, like it was cheap. But I just live to get on an aeroplane and go see things and experience things. And for some reason, I don't know why, but just going to a different country and figuring out why they do what they do and how they do what they do and why is that car different. And I could spend a day in a supermarket in a different country just marveling at their different types of products, it's fascinating to me. So I love to travel. And if I can make it a bit about barbecue at the same time, then I'm all in. So hopefully I do some cool trips again this year. That would be cool.
Awesome. And do you get inspiration from those places you go to sort of bring back to Meatstock?
Yeah, 100%. I always had the philosophy for Meatstock is I didn't want to go to someone else's event, copy it, and then just do what they do, right? Yeah. And so when we created Meatstock, we did it from a blank sheet of paper, all our own ideas, and you'll see events everywhere that'll do a strongman competition, or they'll do some arm wrestling, or they'll add in the Meatstock formula. They throw it all together. We'll have a car show or whatever, and there's lots of events that are popping up all around the world that kind of take that Meatstock formula and they try and make it their own, which is fine. But as Meatstock's grown and has become a thing, I've started to go to other more or like other barbecue events, not necessarily to be inspired, but just to see how other people do it. You know, like Meatopia, Memphis in May. These are iconic events attracting tens of thousands of people. And so it's cool to go over there and do it as a punter. I'm not working, you know. And I watch other people run around crazy, you know, at events trying to get them all organised. And luckily enough that those events, they've always been so kind to me, and they obviously know of Meatstock and have been, you know, let me in behind the scenes and you know, sit in the offices and watch them go through all the same bullshit that we go through too. So whether it's in London or Truscata in Brazil or you know, Smoke and Fire in the UK, there's always a couple of very passionate people behind the scenes with a cool team of people, just sort of like the Meatstock family, that help them pull those events together. And I love that behind the scenes. I love seeing that. You know, I love seeing people problem solve and do stuff on the run, and the punter outside is just oblivious to what's going on.
Jay, it's funny you say that. I watch you at Meatstock at the festival, and it's your level of concentration during the day, and how quickly you sort of like give command. Not going to give command, but like, okay, you make a decision on one thing, then make a decision on another thing. I watch you and I'm like, I'm just looking at you. I'm like, I just feel like you got so much stuff in your head at Meatstock, just like floating around, but then you just like boom, boom. And then you just like, you go into like this, you still enjoy it. You sort of find those moments to enjoy it. But I love watching you in action. Don't take this the wrong way.
It sounds great. It's all right.
But I'm a bit of a people watcher, and I love seeing how people work in like the sort of, like, it's a stressful situation. Like you're at Meatstock. I think the perfect example was last year in Melbourne, fire ban. Everyone needed a bucket of, you know, 2 buckets of water, and it was just kind of like this stuff that stuff that has to happen. But you in action is amazing to watch, man. I love it. It's so good.
I won't say it's a good thing. Look, I'm a creative. I'm a graphic designer. You know, I sit in front of a computer and make pretty pictures. That's my job, and that's what man. As an organizational person, I'm not great, and spreadsheets are not my forte. But we do employ as part of the team, are some very, very smart people that help us out. But yeah, if you ever come to Meatstock and you see me, I don't have a radio on, you know, like I've learned a long time ago that my forte is not in that. So I have fun doing my little bits and pieces, but to be honest, the important stuff is taken care of by other people. But to tell you, I'll tell you one funny story. The day that I decided I wasn't going to be on radio comms anymore, because if you listen on radio comms at an event, someone's had too much hot sauce, they need to call an ambulance, someone's fallen over, there's an argument, whatever it is, there's security going over. There's a lot of stuff that happens behind the scenes on comms. Someone needs help. There's a disabled person that you know, needs to be parked somewhere else. There's a lot of stuff going on, and I used to put that in my ear and try and problem solve everything. And one day there was a heap of bigger boys who had sort of helped themselves into the VIP area in Auckland. And there was no one around, and I tried to call security, but no one replied. So I thought I'd go up there and sort it out myself. And when I got up there and said to these guys, hey, look, you know, you're not allowed to be up here. You've got to have like a wristband on or whatever. I said, you have to leave. And he's like, hey, how are you going to make me leave, mate? It's like, what are you going to do? And I looked around and went, I'm so out of my depth. I'm like, I'll be back. And I went downstairs, and I'm like, all security, quick. And they all came running. And they're like, what an overreaction, you know, like, in the end, all the big, you know, security boys went up there. But in the end, it was like this lady called, I can't remember her name, but she was like the mother security guard, and she came up there. I'm really disappointed in you boys. You're going to have to leave. And they're like, fine. You know, it takes a different touch. It doesn't take, you know. And you know, it was funny. They all walked away with their head down because this female security guard was disappointed in them, and that was the approach it needed. So I like stay in my lane. I do what I'm good at. If you see me, I take a lot of photos. I try and take stuff for socials. I try and be, obviously we do a lot of competitions. There's so many moving parts. When you come to meet, if you go to a normal festival, there's a stage. It's, it's got music on it. There are some food vendors, there's some toilets, and that's kind of about it, right? Every now and again, there might be a small marquee and someone's doing a demonstration or something. But at Meatstock, there's bigger stages, there's eating competitions, beard and nose, and there's literally like 15 different things happening all around the same time that require their own sort of like trophies and formats and run sheets and how do you enter and where do you, and so all of those things happen almost overlapping each other. And all I can say is there's a lot of moving parts to Meatstock. And I wish I was more organised, but look, it is the way it is. I'm working with what I've got.
All right, and also seeing your creative direction as well. And I always catch. I guess you inspire me in your creativity and your videos and how you create videos and your angles and your thought process. But I still remember like you sort of speaking to some of the guys taking the photos, like, hey, I want that big shot of like, and then that really wide shot to give that grasp to people in there, which, like, for example, in Sydney, there's the crowd coming down and those shots, and then I see those shots on the socials and I'm like, the shot he read, that's what he wanted, was that, like, that real impact shot. So it's just really cool, mate. I love just being a part of that.
It's fun being part of that creative process, right? But the hard part is social media moves so quickly. What works one year doesn't work the next year, so you constantly got to reinvent yourself. But I do like taking photos of Meatstock that really do show what we do, and I don't mean to. I suppose the right. Sorry, it's a bit noisy in here. One second. You might have to cut that bit. I'll go back to the start. So I do like showing pictures at Meatstock of what the event is actually all about. So there is lines, there is queues, it is busy. There are lots of things to see and do, and I hate giving people an expectation that Meatstock's going to be some fanciful world that you can walk around and every vendor's ready to serve you food. Like, it's not viable. It's not the reality of Meatstock. So I do like taking sort of shots that show people what to expect, because then that way they kind of look at the photos and they go, okay, Meatstock's a busy place. It's got a cool vibe. There's bands on. It's loud. It's a little bit the wrong word, but it's like a little bit obnoxious, right? It's like I want it to be a little bit of like exciting. You go to some places and it's all like neat and it's not busy and everyone's got plenty of room and it just doesn't have the atmosphere. I want the atmosphere. I want to feel like I'm going to somewhere where I'm bumping shoulders with people and it's like, wow, look at this thing and look at that thing. And so that's why we sort of try to take photos to showcase to people that it's an experience. Meatstock is an experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And to that point too, there are moments of the bumping around and there's a lot of people and it's chaotic, but then there's really good moments too. We're talking sort of Sunday arvo or even Saturday late afternoons where it mellows out a little bit. So I think if you go there for the experience, like it's not just come and eat and leave for the day. It's actually a really cool experience, and I love. For me, the best parts of Meatstock is that sort of early morning, and then as well as late arvo, where you're like, okay, the crowd's full, they're ready to enjoy some music or check something on the stage. It's just such a different vibe again. It moves during the day. I love it.
Human psychology is a really fascinating thing, right? And what happens is, here's a good example. People getting on an aeroplane, right? Everyone wants to rush to get on the aeroplane, but the plane takes off with the same amount of people, right? But they want to be the first. You see everybody with their bags, the first to line up, right? And they're waiting to get on the plane first. And then as soon as the plane lands, they want to be the first to get off the plane. They're all rushing to get off the plane, right? And that's just human psychology. They're not going to get there or any quicker than anyone else. You get off at the same time, you land at the same time. But, they rush to get down to wait for their bags for 20 minutes. So that's no different at Meatstock. People want to rush to get in, rush to eat everything they can the quickest amount of time. So for a 3-hour window there are a lot of people that are just rushing around, lining up, getting food, and they just overwhelm the food vendors for a small amount of time, 3 hours or something like that. But then after that, it really chills out, you know? Everyone's still got food, but maybe 1 or 2 vendors have run out of certain things, but it's not really, there's still plenty of food. It's still a great experience, but it just mellows down. And that's the time, you know, if it was me, I would do all the sort of like things that don't require me to line up while it's busy. And then as soon as I look around and see it's like dying down, I'm like, right, now's my time to go smash food.
That's it. Pro tip. That's a pro tip.
Yeah. But that's just psychology, and that's the way humans act. And I mean, another thing is, and I find this fascinating, right? It's like people insist on lining up at the longest line. It's just it's better than people say. They'll look around the entire festival and they'll look for a 40-minute queue and they'll be like, that's must be the best place, right? It's not. It's not. They're all bloody good, but they'll just line up in that 40-minute queue. And I've got grey hairs and balding hair from, sitting at the back of a 40-minute queue and saying to people, this is going to take you 40 minutes. If you go over there, it will take you 15 minutes, 10 minutes, and I promise you the barbecue is just as good. I promise you it's just as good. They'll be like, nope, I'm not moving. This is the best barbecue. And I'm already lined up and I'm committed to lining up for this. But they're the same people that will say, oh, the lineups were too long, right? But that's just, it's just, it's just human psychology. People line up at the longest lines. Anyway, it is what it is. But that's just, that's our cross to bear. And that's, and to be honest, I haven't been to a barbecue/food festival anywhere else in the world that don't have exactly the same problem, because if there's no queue, they're not making money. Pitmaster's losing money. If you walk up to a food vendor and there's no queue for 10 minutes, they are losing money. It's costing them money to be there. They need to have a queue. They need to be busy. They need to be run off their feet. Any food event you go to and there's no lineups, then it's not viable. They won't be there for much longer.
The good thing is once you get that sort of food coming going because you've eaten too much, there's so many events and things around the place going all the time. So sometimes it's hard to time it so you can see everything, but at the same time, it's because there's so much going on. They're not that busy, well, they're sort of busy, but you can still get a good view. Like, the strongman stuff, you're standing there right in front of the guys watching through insane amounts of weight. So you're getting really close to the action, even though it feels like a really packed event.
Yeah, it's well laid out as well. Now, look, I've got to say, it's on the top, but Meatstock has become one of those things.
That was the longest queue I've ever seen it to. Went out the door, out the corner. It nearly went out the event, I think. Yeah.
It was in front of the stage.
It made us feel like we were very popular because we had a big crowd for us.
The impact, I guess this is just a massive shout out to Sigh, who does amazing artwork. But how much has that become, I don't know, it's become its own thing where people line up for merch and people buying merch from even so inside this artwork, and it's for a barbecue brand that's out there selling it. People are like, who did that? Oh, is that Sigh? I want one of those. Yeah. What's the merch games that's elevated like crazy from anywhere I've ever seen before. Speaking of which, I'm loving this Meatstock t-shirt too. That's
these are the new crew t-shirts you'll get, boys. This year. Only one with that new logo on the front.
Yeah, very cool. But how's the merch plan? Is it one of those things that it seems to sell out so well? But talk us through the evolution of merch at Meatstock.
Well, look, it gets more popular and popular every year, right? And everyone says we should have an online store, but we just don't have the ability to, dispatch and stock and warehouse a range of merch. So we were looking at options for later on down the track, but at the moment, if you want to buy any Meatstock merch, you do it at the event. Yep. And there are events where we've got stuck with excess merch. We've over ordered. So I'm a little bit, wary about ordering too much or not enough. And at the end of the day, it's limited. A lot of you can get other merch, maybe just not the limited edition shirt. And if you really want it, you get there early, you line up, you're probably going to find that we're going to have enough stock. And I have ordered a lot more stock for this year because Toowoomba, we ran out pretty quick. And
Like 9:30, wasn't it?
yeah, we ran out pretty quick, and people got super cranky with us, right? So look, all you can do in those situations is learn your lesson, order more for next year. You can't just create merch on the time. Sometimes you get it wrong, and yeah, Toowoomba was a good example of me getting it wrong. So we've ordered a lot more merch this year, but hey, it'll probably go to, and I'll get some, another Facebook tirade of people who are complaining about not being able to get merch, but. We try to create some cool stuff. We're still, Versus Merch, one of your sponsors, create some really cool stuff for us. So we've got basketball jerseys, we've got baseball jerseys, we've got NFL style jerseys, right? We've got dress shirts, we've got hats, hoodies, flanos, and then really, but the thing that I love is that custom design by Sigh that sits on the back of the limited edition. We still print it old school with the screen print. It's like an 8-color screen print. It's a complicated thing for the screen printers to do, but it's traditional. They wear super nice. Anyone I've got shirts from 2015 that I still wear. Like the prints last. It doesn't feel like that sticker on your back when you get those other ones. So look, everyone lines up to get those sort of merch. We try to make it the best quality that we can, and we try to make it as cool as we can. And thankfully, when you associate yourself with the coolest person on the planet, which is Sigh, he does cool stuff, and we just are along for the ride.
That's it, mate. And is that a Sigh? That's a Sigh sign behind you, isn't it? The low and slow. That's Fahrenheit. That's so good.
So one of the things you'll notice about Meatstock is we've invested in a whole heap of cool, like new neons and signs and stuff like that. And so Sigh's done up about, I want to say 10 cool big neons that go throughout the festival that have got, cool little quirky things like the one he's got, like taking the piss out of people who are constantly talking about, why are you using Fahrenheit? So he's got the devil. I think the devil's Celsius. And he's shaking hands with them.
I love it. And
it's funny. It's funny how people get so triggered by it. It's such a trivial thing that Jesus.
And Facebook is like the world. It seems like it's a trigger fest on Facebook. It's amazing how much
it's a trigger fest. Like people, it's funny. People get so cranky about the fact that we're using Fahrenheit and barbecue, and then you say, "How tall are you?" They're like 6'2". What's so shoey? It's not I'm 150 centimeters. It's not, my foot's 35 centimeters. It's something that if you're into barbecue and you've learnt the American way, you use feet. Planes fly at 40,000 feet. Barbecue's done in Fahrenheit. That's just the way it is, right?
Let it go. And and your phone's not that far away if you want to convert it. Like, you know what I mean?
And you know what? I converted a lot.
I always
to this day.
Oh, that's good to know, because I've made a point where I don't need to know Celsius, and I'll look it up if I have to explain it to someone. And otherwise,
every time I don't know Celsius. What's this? I don't know.
Thank God we've got Siri for that.
Sorry, mate.
I said, thank God we've got Siri now to figure it out for us.
That's it, mate. And I got also massive shout out to someone that hasn't been. If anyone hasn't been to Meatstock and seen it, but Sigh's mural, it's just amazing. The wall he creates over the period of the festival. That's just one of those things that when I first walked in and I saw him doing it, and I was just like, oh my God, he sits there and just makes it through the whole festival. It's so cool to see. And then the amount of people that just stand in front of that and take photos, it's just so cool. And and then anyone that's, I guess, immortalized by Sigh loves it. I remember it's the Dark Side of the Grill. Mel Schmiller Jr. He loved it. He couldn't get over the fact that he was on that wall. Even like recently he posted, that he was on that wall. It was so cool. But it is one of those things that when Sigh like immortalizes you in his style, it's so unique and so special.
So there's one thing we tell Sigh at the wall every year, and that's do whatever the hell you like, buddy. And every year he impresses us and does something really cool. And because he's into barbecue and he knows a lot of people, he's just got a knack for picking out. He does pick out people with defined features because it's obviously easier to immortalize someone with defined features.
Grills and
every now and again, I'm like, what about this person? He's like, no, too plain looking. Like you do, to create a character on a wall, you do need to have someone with quirky glasses.
Yeah.
There's nothing worse than painting someone and people walk up and go, "Who's that?" So it's funny that having said all that too. Sigh designed us up. The biggest radio celebrities here in New Zealand are Jay and Dunk. They've got a show on the radio station called The Rock, and we made up these 5-meter inflatables of Jay and Dunk. And I can't remember which one, but Dunk looks great. You blow him up, and he's like, "Oh my god, that looks just like you. It's great." And you blow Dunk up, and you're like, or Jay, or whichever one it is, and you're like, "What is that? That doesn't look like." So I don't know. Caricature is hard, but Sigh does it better than anybody else. And watching him put that wall together live out of his own head and seeing him create it in front of your eyes over the course of the weekend is something that's very special about Meatstock. And I just watching him do his thing, and he's become a celebrity. Like people will walk in. At one point, people would go over to take photos, and he'd have to move out of the way so they could get their photo, and then he'd come back. But now they're like, no, you've got to be in the photo. Like you've got to have the photo with Sigh, right? So he's become a little bit of a Meatstock celebrity, and rightly so. He's a very, very talented guy. He's very humble, and he's just again part of the family and someone that we all love having around. And he's just one of the most. He's not only talented. He's literally the coolest guy I know. Like if you had to have a cool barometer. He just defines cool. He's into things before anyone else is into them. He's carrying around Yetis before everyone else is. He's wearing overalls before everyone else is. He's got all the tattoos before everyone else does. He's the coolest guy I know, and he's great to have around. And at Meatstock this year in Australia, he's got his own water, so it's called Born Dry, and he's brought out a range of canned waters. So the festivals and plastic is pretty bad. So there's no more bottled water at Meatstock. You'll pay $1 extra than what you normally do, but they come in 500 ml cans, and it's called Born Dry. And he's done a custom illustration for each. There's a cucumber or watermelon. Yeah, that's right. So he's the other thing, he wanted to. We always wanted to call it Yeah Nah. So he has been doing an upside down cross with Yeah Nah on it for 10 years, right? Yeah. And he's made T-shirts up, and it's all over his social media. And every time we'd see someone else do it, we'd all have a bit of a chuckle. But when we went to do the water, we went to call it Yeah Nah because that's his thing. But someone had trademarked it on him about a year ago, so we can't use that term. But it's called Born Dry, and it's zero sugar. But zero processed sugar too, not processed sugar, but substitute sugars. So a lot of people are doing sugar-free drinks, but when you look on the ingredients, like Coke Zero, for example, it's full of other alternative sugars, which are just as bad for you. If you're trying to watch your weight, those sugars are just as bad for you. So it's got zero sugar, zero substitute sugars, just a natural flavor. And it's a watermelon cucumber, but it's Sigh's baby. So if you do see a can, grab one of those, and he's just a creative guy that we love working with.
Nice, man. And I guess Clark and I get really excited because we get to interview some of these people. But who are the big guests that are coming into the next? Obviously New Zealand, we've got a few coming as well. But who are the big ones that are coming in from a pitmaster point of view for Sydney and Bendigo and Toowoomba?
We've tried to embrace a lot of our own personalities, to be honest. I have brought out a lot of people over the years. I've brought out, apart from maybe Myra Mixon, I've brought out most of the top people, either to do classes or, be part of Meatstock. But it just got so horrendously expensive to get people to travel out. And so we made a bit of a decision that we would focus on homegrown people. Don't get me wrong, BBQ is going to be there. She's a big deal. She's out there repping for Traeger. Dark Side of the Grill is going to be there from Canada. He's going to be at two of the three events. Tuffy's keen to come along. I've just got to figure out which one he wants to come to. So look, there's people there, and there's international teams coming to compete. Brazil's sending 3 teams this year to Sydney. South Africa's sending a team to Sydney. But up on stage, you might see homegrown pitmasters that are successful in their own right, have their own restaurants, have their own success on either the circuit or in business. And those are the sort of people that are doing Meet the Pitmasters. And, you know, I think we don't give ourselves enough credit sometimes. I think it's, you know, you see someone on TV in America and you're like, oh, wow, you know, they're doing such a good job. But then you come back here to Australia and you go to some restaurants that we have here or some personalities that we have here, and we're like, we're doing pretty good, you know, like go to Fat Boys, you know, look at their restaurant, and then you go to Texas and you're like, okay, well, Fat Boys can hang, you know, like you go to Black Bear Barbecue out, you know, at their sort of flagship store. It's a cool that place would be just perfectly at home in Austin, Texas, right? So I'm keen on kind of like supporting our hometown heroes at the moment, and but the doors are always welcome for internationals and teams to come and be part of it. But yeah, travel's just so expensive. You used to be able to fly somebody out there, you know, for $2 or $3 grand, and you know, you put someone on a premium economy seat now, and it's 10 grand before you've even got them here.
No, fair enough. And look, I'm super excited. We've got Martin Goffin on stage. We've got Luke Moonshine as well. You know, and so I think we've got some great. And I love Martin on stage. Actually, he tells a good story in his own special way. And,
he comes there covered in grease.
He always looks like a big master. It's so good. No, amazing.
So but there's so many characters. You know, like Rap's a good one too. Smoking Arabs. We've got so many characters, and to see them up on stage and repping what we do, I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and that's it. I think and if you look at this, like even the story, like Raph, Luke, and Martin, they all got such varying different backgrounds in how they got into barbecue. You know, it's so good, and they still produce amazing barbecue. And like you said, you know, competitive enough to be somewhere in Texas. So that's so cool to hear.
Martin's restaurant, a Red Gum, is a perfect example of something that is every bit as good and cool as anything else I've stepped into in Texas, right? So hats off to him and what he's created and the vision that he had, and the execution that he's done too. So just to walk in there and to see those big Silver Creek pits, and he's got some, you know, whole hogs. You know, he's cooking whole hog for the awards night in Bendigo as well. So he's catering for everybody. So you know, he's going to turn it on with them. So I just sometimes I just feel like we don't give ourselves enough credit here about the kind of caliber of people that we have involved.
Yeah.
And when, you know, you go overseas, it's so, when you first go to Austin or you first do a Texas road trip, and a lot of people, it's a bucket list thing for a lot of people to get into barbecue because they want to go see where it all started from. And don't get me wrong, it's cool. It is cool. It's ultra cool. But, you know, we do have some pretty cool places here that I think, you know, are every bit as good or can hang with a lot of those places. And this event here in New Zealand, we have John Bates. So he's from Interstellar Barbecue, which is the #2 rated barbecue joint in Texas through Texas Monthly. He, you know, he's beat Franklin Barbecue. He's beat all the big dogs. You know, he's at the top of his game, and he's here in New Zealand cooking as part of the JD Fire Kitchen. So we've got the best of the best. But, you know, I guarantee you that guy who is lovely, by the way, but that guy who has got the #2 best restaurant in Texas and therefore all of America, in my opinion, I bet you he's walking around here in New Zealand looking around going, holy shit.
No, it's unreal, man. It's unreal. We cannot wait for Meatstock, and one of our favorites is watching the Butcher Wars. And that, I feel like that's gone from I guess leveling up this year. It seems like there's so many more Butcher Wars. There's one in England. I think there's one in talk of in Germany. How have you seen that journey? Because and for someone that maybe hasn't seen Butcher Wars, maybe give us a quick introduction what it is. Because I think if you are going to Meatstock, it's critical that you experience at least one round of Butcher Wars on the war stage.
Yeah. So full credit to Shannon. He's really the driving force behind Butcher Wars, right? But just to tell you how it all started, is that I wanted something where people could sit down and watch butchers really showcase what they can do. And at the time that we started Butcher Wars, the local butcher shop was a dying breed. They were closing at a rate of knots. Supermarkets were taking over. You could buy meat at supermarkets for a lot cheaper than you could in a butcher shop. And owners were retiring, shutting down, can't sell their butcher shops. And butchery is frankly a dirty trade. You're a butcher. You wouldn't want to tell people you're a butcher. It was embarrassing. And what we did was we kind of thought to ourselves, what can we put on that would be something that's cool, that people could watch at Meatstock, which would showcase that the relationship that you have with your butcher is important. The quality of the meat you can get through your local butcher is important. And supermarkets have their place, don't get me wrong. I buy plenty of meat at supermarkets, but I just think that it would be a shame if they took over. It would be a shame if there wasn't your local butcher shop. So what we did was we developed a format that we thought people would have the patience for to sit down and watch. So there's a lot of different butchery competitions, and there was another butchery competition preceding us, but it was long, and people don't have the time or the patience to sit there and watch a 2-hour show. And so we did a 30-minute show. It's very quick fire. 30 minutes is not enough time for them to do what they do with the meat, the amount of meat that we give them. It's really challenging, it's stressful, but someone's going to sit there and watch you for 30 minutes. They're not going to sit there and watch you for 2 hours. That's why you see a lot of other butchery competitions, and there's just, apart from industry people, there's no one there. It's just not entertaining, right? So Butcher Wars was developed to showcase the art of butchery in a setting where there's a big crowd and people want to watch, they want to be educated, but they're not going to sit there for a long amount of time. So it's been really successful. You can see the photos. There's 1,000 people sitting around watching every single round. Over the years, tens of thousands of people have sat down there and watched Butcher Wars. Is it a perfect format? Probably not. Is it fun to watch? Yes. Is it stressful for the butchers? Yes. Do you see professionals get up there and their knives are literally shaking in their hands because they're in front of a crowd, they're on a stage, the lights are down, Steve's on the microphone? It's nerve-wracking, it's scary, right? But the butchers that get up there, I would just say they're brave, right? You're standing toe-to-toe as an individual next to somebody who's probably your peer and trying to compete against them. And so there's nowhere to hide. There's no team to hide behind. There's no one to blame. If you don't do well, it's your own fault. If you do well, though, you take all the credit on your back for that. And there are some butchers that have really pushed, like anything, SCA, ABA, competitive barbecue, and they're really at the top of their game in terms of perfecting that format and how it works. But I've had the pleasure of watching Butcher Wars in Brazil. There's one in the UK starting up. There's one in Greece. There's one in Germany starting up. There's probably going to be 10 World Butcher Wars around the world next year, all kind of like spearheaded by Shannon, and he's supporting a lot of those events around the world. And what it will culminate in is the World Butcher Wars. And the World Butcher Wars will be held at Ascot Park, which is a pretty prestigious location in London. And all the winning teams and all the winning butchers over all these events will come together to crown a World Butcher Wars champion. And we think that's pretty cool event, and something that, now you have somewhere to go to really push your passion to the very limit of your abilities. The sad thing is, there's probably going to be hundreds of butchers compete in rounds, and at the end of the day, there's only really one winner. So that's a tough pill to swallow. But at the same time, if you're into butchery, and I just see at Butcher Wars, someone gets up on stage and he's someone's dad or someone's wife, or they've got kids, they've got business colleagues, they've got other people that work with them or for them, or they work together, and they're all there to support them. And so to step up on stage and say, hey, I actually care, I'm passionate about what I do, I'm committed, and they're making their kids proud, they're making their family proud, and I think that's a cool thing too, you know. And from where butchery was 15 years ago, where you wouldn't tell someone you're a butcher, I think now you can tell people you're a butcher, and they're like, oh wow, cool, you know, I've seen these butchers up on stage. That's a cool thing, you know.
And how have trophies to show for it as well. Like, I mean, that's amazing. I absolutely love what you guys have done with that, and how Shannon's like grown that over the years. And you speak to a few butchers as well about it, and for them, it's such a highlight in their year as well. So, amazing work. But yes, if anyone is watching this and hasn't experienced the butcher war and all around of it, definitely watch it. These guys slog it out for half an hour. And it's half a lamb, is it? Half a lamb they prepare.
It's half a lamb and half a saddle of pork.
Yeah, right.
And what I will say is, it is hard to convince people to get upstage and give it a go. Two reasons, right? One reason is, you know, it requires some prep and some time and some practice, and you don't want to make yourself look like an idiot up on stage. So you've got to devote some time to it. But the other thing is, three things. The other thing is, people go, oh, I can't compete with these guys. They're professionals, you know. I'm only a third year apprentice, or I haven't really got into that fine art, you know. And the other thing is too, you've got a lot of butchers with bigger egos, and they don't want to step up on stage and lose to somebody else, right? So they avoid it. They're like, there's plenty of butchers that have got plenty of credibility in the industry, have never stepped on stage in Meatstock because they don't want to put their reputation on the line. And then there are plenty of people who are too scared to do it because they don't want to get humiliated, or they don't want to, perform poorly. So they're just too scared to do it. But what I will say is, you've got to start somewhere, whether it's competitive barbecue, SCA. If you're going to get into it, don't expect to win your first competition, but expect to have fun, expect to meet some good friends, expect to be part of a family, and expect to get up there and have some fun. And if you do that, you're going to walk away happy, right? And then the more you do it, the better you get. That's just the way all of these competitions work. And if you do put yourself out there and you do get up on stage, full credit to you. And I think it's something that you should tick off as a butcher before, you leave the trade. Get up on stage, and give it a go.
Absolutely, man. Oh, look, it's great. I can't wait to watch it again.
Yep.
And look, Meatstock has so much, like you said, it's more than just a festival. Like it's a massive, massive amount of things that are happening. Looking forward to music too. The music that's lined up for the next, even New Zealand. I'm so bummed I'm missing Shihad. Like, I'm a huge fan, and the fact that they're playing Hamilton, I'm like, oh man, that sucks. So yeah, you got some great, country music, rock, Sydney's rock. It's just some big acts coming in. Part in curating which acts play where, or do you have a vibe of, like, I think you mentioned past, like Sydney likes the rock music. But I feel like it's a real mix this year where, like, you've got rock, but you've got country, and things like that. How do you define who goes and who plays where?
We've got a great programmer called Chris, who's really one of the best programmers in the country. But what we're trying to do is put on some music that sort of suits Meatstock's vibe, and it's a good mix, right? You might not be into rock, but there might be some bluegrass there, or there might be a little bit of country there, and you can kind of get into that, right? We're not trying to be a music festival first and foremost, but the music element is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Yeah. But look, in Sydney, it's a lot of rock, a bit of bluegrass, a little bit of country, but it's mainly rock. Over here in New Zealand, it's a lot of reggae. It's some rock and it's some country. And then, in Toowoomba and Bendigo, it's the country, the lineup's very country, right? But if you like rock, go to Sydney. If you like reggae, come to New Zealand. If you like country music, go to Bendigo. And you know what? If you don't like any of that, you're still going to have a good time. Loosen up. It's okay to listen to other music, right? It's funny, but I've never liked country music in my entire life, right? And I started doing Meatstock. We go to Toowoomba, we got to put on country. And now I'm driving around listening to bloody Brad Cox, and this morning I'm singing along to bloody Beyonce singing country music. So
it takes us older.
Correct. So I think to myself, maybe it's a maturity thing, I don't know, but it's okay to like other music. It's okay to like other genres of music, right? Yes. You don't have to just be like, if it's not rock, it's crap, or if it's not R&B, I hate it. Like, just if you like it, you like it. And whether it's country, rock, reggae, blues, or whatever, if you're sitting there with a cold drink and tapping your feet, good. That's the way. Have that attitude is what I'm trying to say.
No, I totally agree. And I remember growing up, and it was always the case with music. It's like you're in one camp or the other. And I'm like, no, but I like grunge and I like reggae and I like pop and I still like country. It's like, leave me alone. So it's good to have variety, I think, in life. But and that's what's great about all the festivals. And if you do like all the music, go to all the meat stocks. It's simple.
But I mean, if you look at a lineup of meat stock and you put it into, people always they post on meat stock, what do I get for my money? Do I get free food? Well, no, we don't. But a lot of those bands would charge to play at a gig probably as much as you're paying to get in anyway. You want to go see She Had at a venue, you're probably paying $60-$70, right?
Yeah.
So, you want to see the Hoodoo Gurus. I mean, you can come see the Hoodoo Gurus in Sydney for $70. I mean, it's a pretty good deal. You can come and see the Hoodoo Gurus and watch a PBR show and come to Meatstock for like $110. If that's not the best value day out, I don't know what is, So I just think a lot of people kind of they don't understand where the value of Meatstock comes from, because you are paying money to walk through a gate. No one's giving you a free this or a free that. And then when you get in, you've got to buy food and you've got to buy drinks. There are a lot of festivals around the world that when you get in, you get free food, right? But I can assure you the queues are just as long, if not longer. And I can assure you that the ticket price relative to Australia would be over $200. So, if you want that sort of festival, great, but you'd have to pay $200 plus. Meatopia is a good example. You pay $80 Australian just to get in, to pay $14 per dish for a tasting plate. So I would just encourage people to know that meat is not cheap. Barbecue is not cheap. People have got to stop thinking about barbecue as fast food and comparing it to McDonald's or, a kebab or something like that. Barbecue is something meat is intrinsically expensive just to buy it. So beef ribs is a perfect example. People are like, I'm not paying $50 for a beef rib. That's ridiculous. And I agree with you. $50 for a beef rib is ridiculous. But it's costing that pitmaster $20 raw. A rack of beef ribs cheap is $60. You go get a good rack, it's $80. They're cheap ones. Yeah. And so by the time you've got that and you've cooked it and you put it through a pit for 7 hours and you've babied it and you tended to it and you've got a handful of splinters and you've had to deal with everything else going on, $50 is a very reasonable price. So I would just say that barbecue is one of those things that it's just not cheap. And however you want to look at Meatstock can be an expensive experience, but it can also be a cheap experience. You can come in, have fun, walk around, watch the demos, stay around for the tastings, go talk to the teams. You don't have to go into Meatstock and blow hundreds of dollars. Some people do, and that's great. But some people, if you really wanted to stay at Meatstock all day long, listen to cool music, have a couple of beers, have a few things to eat, it's a pretty, wouldn't say cheap, but it's a pretty, I think it's good value for money.
Absolutely. Now, Joe,
just want to ask the most important question I'm getting from my South Australian friends. Now, it's gone from Melbourne to Bendigo, so it's slowly getting towards South Australia.
That's north.
Let's slowly go in the right direction. They're always keen for a meat stock in South Australia. Is there any plan for it to sort of go anywhere else in the future?
Oh, look, we get a lot of people go, why is this not in Perth? And come to Perth and come to far north Queensland. That's a very popular one. There's a lot of demand up there. And Adelaide's one of the big ones too when you bring it to South Australia. And if you've ever been to a meat stock, you know how big they are. And at the core of a meat stock is a whole group of helpers, volunteers, people who are giving up their weekends, leaving kids, leaving wives, leaving families. And 4 times a year, I ask those people to get on a plane or get in their car and sleep in a hotel room for 5 or 6 nights and leave their families and help me. And that we're doing that 4 times every year. That's a fair whack of commitment. That could, in a year, that's 3 weeks out of people's lives that come and help us. And I just feel like if we keep adding events, we're asking too much of the people that help us. And I feel like just adding a South Australia in for the sake of ticking the box, we've got to be careful that you don't become like a big day out or, an event where you've got so many events in so many areas that you start to drop the ball. And we've looked at South Australia, we've flown over there twice, we've looked at venues. And there's another festival there already, the Beer and BBQ Festival. They do a good job. It's a great event. They're expanding out to Mount Gambier or something like that. And look, we just feel like while they're there doing a good job, do we need to go over there and, you know, make it unviable for both of us? So, you know, I'd encourage you to get out and support the beer and the beer and barbecue event. It's already in South Australia. And if you love Meatstock, then unfortunately you have to get on an aeroplane and come to one of the events that we've got. And who knows, maybe one day we will, but we're growing slowly. And there's other opportunities around the world for us to do events as well. So, you know, and to Perth people, I would say that it's probably closer for me to do an event in New Zealand than it is to do an event in Perth.
Yeah, as a country.
Yeah, and we do hyper analyze other events and how well they do and what the feedback's like. And Perth's had quite a few barbecue related events, and Perth people can be brutal. The competition teams, the, you know, punters, you know, they have really high expectations, and nothing over there has kind of hit anyone's expectations yet. And I don't want to be the guy that goes over there and, you know, lets everyone else down too. So yeah. It's kind of like, there are so many events in Australia, not New Zealand so much, but in Australia, there's so many events in Australia that are underpinned by government funding. So you walk into an event and you look at all this infrastructure and pretty marquees and fancy sort of stuff, and look at the bottom of the poster. It's all funded by the government. It's all tourism money, or it's government money in some way, shape or form. And a lot of big events are underpinned by government money. Meatstock's not. So when you buy your ticket to Meatstock, you're paying for everything. But a lot of these other events are, you know, they wouldn't exist. They would not exist without government money, and they're not viable. So the only thing I can say about Meatstock is people complain every now and again about why do we do this and why does it cost so much money and why is this, but we've proven to be viable. We've stayed around for, you know, in bad times and good times, and we've made the event viable and stand on its own 2 feet, so that, you know, if we have an event where the government pulls their funding one year, we're not out of business. And I think that's something that's worth supporting. And yeah, but people have very, very high expectations of what they should get if they pay $50 for something like that. And it's very hard to meet people's expectations of what they should get. So it's a challenge. It's the, you know, what keeps us up at night, trying to make Meatstock the best thing we could make it. How to make everybody happy so that when people walk out of here, they've had a good experience and they want to come back. But it's a challenge. It really is a challenge.
All right. And Jay, for what it's worth, we absolutely reckon it's an amazing festival.
Oh, wouldn't we come back loving it and excited, big grins?
No, it is by far one of the best. I think, what you've done and what you brought together is amazing with the team. And, kudos to yourself and all the founders and things like that. So really appreciate you keeping going, because I know it's a lot of work, and like you said, a lot of sleepless nights as well. Just want to, I guess, wish you all the best for Hamilton kickoff for 2024. I'm looking forward to watching it via Instagram and Facebook, and feeling really, really, really hungry, jealous. I'm just jealous. Huge FOMO happening. I'm already feel it coming through. But so good to have you on, mate, and have a chat. And I can't wait to, I guess, catch up with you in Toowoomba as well. And wishing you the best for the next few days. And I'm hoping the bumpkins go real smooth and the weather stays fantastic and the barbecue is great and the music's even better.
I really appreciate it. And quick story before you go. I remember when we did our first Meatstock in Melbourne, right? And you know, little trucks rolled in, people's utes, and the team set up, and then I can remember our first big rig rolled in, and it was a truck carrying a barbecue on the back for Black Bear Barbecue, but it was a proper like semi-trailer, right? And it rolled into Melbourne Showgrounds, and I was fascinated. I was like, look at the size, like this is a proper big truck, like look at this thing in Meatstock, like, and it was back in 2016 or something like that. And I thought to myself at that time, wow, you know, Meatstock's really like turned a corner. This is pretty impressive, right? And now I'm looking out the window of our office in New Zealand, and there's just semi-trailer after semi-trailer after semi-trailer rolling in like one after the other. There's probably been 30 come in and out delivering stages and barbecues and lighting rigs and all sorts, bars and containers and all sorts of stuff, right? And yeah, so it's grown a lot, and I'm really proud to do it. And I get a buzz out of it every single time. And I've got good people around me. There's too many to list. Adriana, George, Stu. There's heaps, right? But I get a buzz out of coming and seeing it all and watching it grow, and yeah, I love it.
Thanks so much, mate. And look, I cannot wait to get into it as well. And we'll see you soon. Enjoy New Zealand, and thanks so much for coming back on the show. It's really good to have you back.
Thanks, Jay.
See you guys.
Thanks, mate. Oh, Meatstock.
Why can't it be on tomorrow?
So good to have Jay on the show and learn so much. It's So I think the secret stills left for Toowoomba, Bendigo, and Sydney.
Yes,
but they are running low. As Jay mentioned, New Zealand, Hamilton's sold out. Say Saturday, but Sunday's there. But yeah, amazing festival, and I know that's the festival itself changed our life quite a bit. So it's
just a big family, and just again the atmosphere is amazing. You go there, you're not sure what it's about, but you go there for the meat. But then there's bands, and there's a strongman, and there's everything. Right, it's a great time.
You got to experience it, and it was so good to have Jay on the show. Huge shout out to our sponsors too. So Jack's Creek, not Jack's Creek. Jack's Creek Meat.
They're good to use to barbecue.
It's a good, I'm pretty sure they use Jack's Creek Meat. That's probably not a bad mention. Without Fear too, who create brands and merch to actually, bring people out of fear and talk about mental health, which is fantastic. And our mates at Versus Merch, who are also friends of Meatstock. So yeah, they do some amazing merch. Yes. And finally, the bar Pleasant Road Brewery to Tap House as well. Great to be here again. We love filming out of this location, and huge shout out to Mark and team who help us out. Have the space. But Mark, good to have a chat to you, mate. I think the next few interviews might be live at Meatstock.
Oh, it is coming.
Yeah, can't wait. Have a good one, everyone, and see you next time on the BBQ